Hey guys, tonight we are traveling way back. Back before a proper weekend, before streaming services, and certainly before the questionable comfort of a school bus. We're heading to ancient Rome, a place of epic grandeur and, as you're about to discover, truly epic misery if you were a kid. You're going to step into the tunic of a Roman schoolboy. And frankly, your chances of survival, or at least your chances of not being permanently traumatized by the experience, are hilariously low. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. It helps the channel find other people who, like you, enjoy drifting off to the mundane horrors of the past. Go ahead and drop your location and local time in the comments below. It's always fascinating to see where everyone is listening from as the world turns. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing you're aware of is the cold. It's a deep, damp chill that seems to emanate from the very stone of the floor beneath you, seeping through the thin wool of your mattress. There is no gentle sunrise filtering through a window, no cheerful alarm clock on a nightstand. Your world is utter blackness, the kind of profound, inky dark that only exists far from the perpetual twilight of modern cities. The air is heavy with the smells of sleep-stale breath, the lingering scent of wood smoke from yesterday's cooking fire, and the faint, ever-present undertone of unwashed bodies and chamber pots. A rough hand shakes your shoulder, not with tenderness, but with brusque efficiency. It's your father. His voice is a low rumble in the darkness, not angry, but devoid of any warmth. Get up, it is time. There is no negotiation. No, 5 more minutes. The day has begun, as it always does, hours before the sun will even consider making its appearance. This is a common truth of Roman life. The day belongs to the diligent, and diligence begins in the oppressive. Pre-dawn gloom. Your father, the pater familias, holds absolute authority in this household. His word is law, and his ambition for you is a heavy cloak you must wear every single day. You swing your legs off your low cot, your feet meeting the frigid stone floor with a small, silent gasp. You don't have pajamas to change out of. You likely slept in your undertunic, a simple linen shift to ward off some of the night's chill. Now, you pull your main tunic over your head. It's a coarse, scratchy wool, a tube of fabric clumsily stitched at the sides and shoulders, cinched at the waist with a simple leather belt. There are no logos, no soft cotton, no choices to be made. This is your uniform for life. Its quality and color a direct reflection of your family's modest, but striving, place in the world. You fumble in the dark, your fingers finding the worn leather of your sandals. You slide your feet into them, the cold leather a second shock to your system. There's no breakfast table laden with food. In the corner of the small room, which serves as a bedroom for you and your siblings and a living space for the whole family, sits a clay jug of water and a small, hard loaf of dark bread left over from yesterday's dinner. This is your breakfast. You break off a piece. Its texture more like a rock than a pastry. You chew it slowly, mechanically, the dry crumbs scratching your throat. Sometimes you dip it in water, or if your father's business has been good, a bit of watered-down wine to make it go down easier. The concept of a dedicated morning meal, a cheerful family gathering around a table, is a fantasy. You eat what is available, quickly and quietly, to fuel the long day ahead. The idea of complaining about the lack of artisanal cheese or freshly pressed olive oil is so alien, it's not even laughable. You eat to survive, not for pleasure. Your home is a small apartment, a cenaculum, on the third floor of a towering, rickety insula. These apartment blocks are the heart of Rome. Massive, shoddily constructed hives packed with thousands of families like yours. The walls are thin, more like suggestions of privacy than actual barriers. You can hear the world waking up around you, not with the gentle hum of a modern suburb, but with a cacophony of human noise. A baby wails in the apartment below. 2 floors up, a man is shouting at his wife, his words muffled, but his anger clear. You hear the creak and groan of the building itself, a constant reminder that these structures are famously prone to collapse or, even more commonly, fire. Your father is already by the door, holding a small, flickering oil lamp. The tiny flame dances and spits, casting long, monstrous shadows that writhe on the plaster walls. It doesn't illuminate so much as it deepens the darkness around its small sphere of influence. He hands you your school things. There is no sleek backpack. You are given a wax tablet, which is 2 hinged wooden boards coated on the inside with a layer of blackened beeswax. You have a stylus, a pointed instrument of iron or bone, sharp at one end for writing and flat at the other for erasing your work by smoothing the wax. You clutch these objects, their weight and familiar texture a source of dread, not comfort. They are the instruments of your daily trial. If your family were wealthier, you would be accompanied on this journey by a pedagogus. This would be an educated slave, usually Greek, whose entire job is to escort you to and from school, carry your things, and oversee your behavior. He would be both a protector and a warden, but your family is not wealthy enough for such a luxury. Your father is a respectable artisan, perhaps a skilled potter or a metal worker, comfortable enough to afford the fees for your education, but not for its accessories. So, you will make this journey alone. You give a quick, silent nod to your mother, who is already busy by the hearth, tending to the embers to prepare for her own long day of domestic work. Your younger sister is still a lump under a woolen blanket. Her education will be at home, learning to spin and weave and manage a household. Her world is this apartment. Yours is the city. For a fleeting moment, you envy her. Your father opens the heavy wooden door, and the reality of the Roman street hits you like a physical blow. The air is a thick, soupy mixture of smells. The smoke from thousands of bakers' ovens, the sharp, acidic stench of the fuller's shops where clothes are cleaned with urine, the metallic tang of blood from a nearby butcher's stall, and overriding it all, the ever-present, gag-inducing reek of human and animal waste. The narrow, unpaved street is a river of filth. In the faint, dancing light of your father's lamp, you can see glistening piles of refuse, discarded food, and things you dare not identify. You step out, and your journey begins. Your father walks with you for the first block. His presence, a silent, temporary shield against the dark. The street is not empty. It is teeming with a strange nocturnal life. Massive, creaking carts, banned from the city center during daylight hours to ease congestion, rumble past, their iron-shod wheels striking sparks on the cobblestones. They are pulled by straining oxen, their drivers shouting hoarse commands. These are the arteries of Rome's commerce, pumping goods into the city's heart while its respectable citizens sleep. You press yourself against the cold, damp wall of a building to let one pass. Its immense wheels splashing a foul liquid perilously close to your feet. After a few hundred feet, your father stops. He points down the dark, winding alley that serves as a street. "Go," he says, his voice as firm as ever. He hands you the oil lamp. Its warm, greasy weight feels both pathetically small and absolutely essential. He turns and walks back toward the insula. His own workday at his shop beginning just as yours does. Now, you are truly alone. You hold the lamp high, its flickering light a tiny beacon in the immense darkness. Your world shrinks to a small circle of greasy cobblestones and looming, shadowy walls. Every doorway is a potential hiding place for a mugger. Every corner, a potential ambush. You walk quickly, your sandals making soft, slapping sounds on the grimy stones. You keep to the center of the lane as much as possible. This is a practical defense learned from bitter experience. The upper floors of the insulae jut out over the street, and it is common practice for residents to simply dump their chamber pots and other refuse out the window into the street below. There's even a specific Roman law, the Actio de Effusis Vel Deictis, that allows people to sue for damages if they're hit by falling. Well, by falling anything. But knowing you could theoretically sue someone later is cold comfort when you're trying to avoid being drenched in filth in the dark. It's one of those uniquely Roman things, a highly litigious society that hasn't quite figured out municipal plumbing. A stray dog, ribs showing, darts out from an alley, sniffs at your heels, and then vanishes back into the shadows. You hear the scuttling of rats. The true kings of the Roman night, your heart beats a little faster. This is not a child's overactive imagination. The streets are genuinely dangerous. While the satirical poets like Juvenal may have exaggerated the perils for comedic effect, the threat was real. Historians still debate the actual statistical frequency of violent street crime versus the literary tropes. But for you, a small boy alone in the dark, the academic distinction is meaningless. Every shadow holds a potential threat. You clutch the stylus in your hand, its sharp point facing outward. It's a pathetic weapon, but it's all you have. And the illusion of self-defense makes you feel marginally better. You pass a bakery, its open front glowing like the mouth of a furnace. The air here is thick with the warm, wonderful smell of baking bread. A baker, his face and arms white with flour, is pulling flat loaves from a massive brick oven. The contrast between this pocket of warmth and life and the cold, dangerous street is staggering. For a moment, You imagine a different life, one where you learn a trade like this, working with your hands in the warm glow of the fire. But that is not your path. Your path leads to a different kind of furnace. Further on, you pass a thermopolium, a fast food counter already open for business. A slave is ladling a hot, soupy gruel into bowls for a few early rising laborers who huddle on stools, warming their hands over steaming cups. The smell is savory, but you know better. The food is cheap, often of questionable origin, and meant for people who have no kitchen of their own. You keep walking, your own meager breakfast of dry bread a lump in your stomach. The sky above is beginning to change. The impenetrable black is softening to a deep, bruised purple at the eastern edge of the city. The outlines of the rooftops are becoming visible against the lightening sky. The first true light of dawn. The aurora is breaking. With the light comes more people. Porters carrying heavy amphorae on their backs. Merchants setting up their stalls in a small piazza you must cross. Their voices a low hum of commerce. The city is yawning, stretching, and coming to life. But the light doesn't necessarily mean safety. It just means you can see the dangers more clearly. The crowds are growing thicker, a jostling river of humanity. You have to be careful of pickpockets, of being knocked over, of simply getting lost in the surge of bodies. You are small, insignificant, a tiny particle in the massive churning organism that is Rome. Your destination is in a less than reputable part of the Forum Boarium. The cattle market, the smell of livestock, old and fresh, hangs heavy in the air. You can hear the lowing of cattle and the bleating of goats. The ground here is even more treacherous, a muddy slurry of dirt, water, and animal droppings. You try to pick your way through it, your sandals now thoroughly coated in a foul-smelling paste. You're tired, you're dirty, you're still cold despite the exertion, and your stomach is churning with a familiar mix of hunger and anxiety. You can feel the weight of the day ahead settling on your small shoulders. A part of you wishes you could just turn around, run back to the relative safety of your family's apartment, and hide under your blanket. A very modern part of your brain, a part that doesn't really belong here, might even wish you could check a device in your pocket for a notification. School canceled due to impending barbarian raid. Have a great day. Go on. But there are no such notifications. There is only the grim, relentless march toward education. Finally, you see it. It's not a grand building with stately columns and an inspiring name carved in stone. It's not even a dedicated building at all. Your school is a rented lean-to, a pergola, set up against the back wall of a noisy blacksmith shop. It's little more than a covered porch, open to the street on one side. You can already hear the rhythmic, deafening clang of the blacksmith's hammer, a sound that will provide the soundtrack to your lessons for the entire day. A few other boys are already there, huddled on simple wooden benches, their faces pale and anxious in the gray morning light. Your teacher, a man named Lucius Orbilius, a name you will come to associate with a very specific kind of dread, is standing there, watching you approach. He is not smiling. He is holding a long, thin cane made of fermented fennel stalk. It's called a ferula, and you know, with the absolute certainty of bitter experience, that he is very, very eager to use it. You have arrived. Your perilous journey through the dark is over. And now, the real misery is about to begin. You take the last few steps, your filthy sandals squelching softly on the damp ground. You enter the space that, for the next 8 hours, will be your entire world. It's not a room so much as a compromise. The school is a deep, covered alcove, a pergola, wedged against the side of the blacksmith's workshop. A thick, grimy curtain hangs limply across most of the opening to the street, a flimsy shield against the noise and the gawking of passers-by. It does little to stop the smells of the cattle market from wafting in, and it flaps uselessly whenever a strong gust of wind funnels down the narrow street. There is no door to close, no window to seal you away from the chaos of Rome. The city is not a backdrop to your education. It is an active, intrusive participant. The back wall of the alcove is the stone and brick of the forge. It's warm to the touch, and you can feel a constant, low vibration through the soles of your feet, a deep hum from the powerful forces at work on the other side. Every few seconds, this hum is shattered by the deafening, percussive clang of the blacksmith's hammer striking hot iron. The sound hits you in the chest, a physical blow that makes the very air tremble. This is the metronome of your day. It is the rhythm by which you will learn. A constant, brutal reminder of the world of manual labor that your father is paying to keep you out of. The floor is packed earth, uneven and strewn with pebbles. You glance down at the muck you tracked in from the market, a souvenir from your morning's journey, and realize it makes little difference to the general state of the ground here. The furniture is Spartan to the point of being punitive. 3 long backless wooden benches sub celia are arranged in uneven rows. They are scarred with the graffiti of generations of miserable boys. Initials and crude drawings carved into the wood with the points of their stylo during rare moments of teacher inattention. At the front, facing the benches, is a single, high-backed chair. The cathedra. It is the teacher's throne, and from it, he surveys his tiny, squalid kingdom. You see an empty space on the end of the second bench and slide into it, the rough wood snagging on your wool tunic. The other boys, about a dozen of them, are already seated. They range in age from 6 to perhaps 11. There is no friendly chatter, no morning gossip. A heavy, collective silence hangs over them, a silence made all the more profound by the blacksmith's relentless hammering next door. They sit with shoulders hunched, eyes fixed on the wax tablets in their laps, as if intense concentration might render them invisible. It's a shared strategy of survival. You adopt it immediately, lowering your gaze to your own blank, black tablet. And then there is the teacher, Lucius Orbilius. He is standing beside his cathedra, his arms crossed. He is not a large man, but he possesses an aura of coiled tension that makes him seem larger. He wears a simple, off-white toga, its fabric frayed at the hem and marked with what look like old ink stains. He is a literator, a teacher of the first stage of Roman education: reading, writing, and basic arithmetic. This is a crucial, yet widely disdained profession. It's a common and unfortunate fact of Roman life that the men tasked with building the very foundation of literacy in the next generation are afforded almost no respect and very little pay. They are often freedmen, former slaves, or citizens who have failed at every other venture, clinging to teaching as a last resort. Their bitterness is legendary. Your Orbilius is a perfect embodiment of this stereotype. His face is a mask of permanent disapproval, etched with deep lines of resentment. His thin lips are set in a perpetual sneer. He is partially bald, but the gray hair he has left is slicked down with a cheap, pungent oil. He exudes an air of profound disappointment, as if the world has personally offended him by failing to recognize his genius. And he has chosen to take that offense out on small children. The name Orbilius itself seems cursed with this association. You've heard whispers from older boys about the poet Horace, who, a generation or two ago, wrote about his own childhood teacher, a man named Orbilius, whom he nicknamed Plegosusus, the flogger, the whipper. It's a strangely specific and obscure bit of lore that gets passed down. A warning that this is not just a job for these men, but a grim tradition. You wonder if this Lucius is a relative of that first Orbilius, or if the name just attracts a certain kind of person. Right now, his attention is fixed on the object in his hand, the ferula. It's a long, flat rod cut from a giant fennel stalk, a plant that grows tough and rigid when dried. It looks deceptively lightweight, almost flimsy, but you know better. You have seen the red, angry welts it leaves on the palm of a boy's hand. He taps it against his thigh. A slow, rhythmic thump, thump, thump that is somehow more menacing than the blacksmith's hammer. His eyes, small and dark, sweep across the benches, scanning his flock. He isn't looking for understanding or engagement. He is hunting. He is searching for the first infraction of the day, the first nail that sticks up, so he can hammer it down. The air in the pergola is thick with a palpable fear. It's a physical presence, something you can almost taste. It smells of boyish sweat, damp wool, and the ever-present smoke from the forge. You can feel the tension in the boy next to you, who is so rigid he seems to have stopped breathing. There is no sense of community here. No, we're all in this together. It's the opposite. Every other boy is a potential lightning rod who might draw the teacher's attention away from you. You don't wish them ill. Exactly. But you pray silently that someone else's mistake will be more egregious than your own. It's a sad, lonely calculation that school has taught you to make every single day. A modern student might worry about a pop quiz. You worry about whose turn it is to be ritually beaten for a clumsy mistake. The curtain at the entrance shivers, and a final student stumbles in. He's a small, round-faced boy named Gaius, who is new. He is a few minutes late. He freezes just inside the curtain, his eyes wide with panic as they lock onto Orbilius. The blacksmith's hammer falls silent for a moment, and in the sudden, ringing quiet, Orbilius speaks. His voice is not loud, but it is as sharp and cold as a shard of ice. Gaius, You honor us with your presence. The sarcasm is so heavy it could dent metal. Gaius just stands there, paralyzed. The sun waits for no man. Orbilius continues, taking a slow step forward. And I wait for no boy. Do you have a reason for your tardiness? Was the fate of the Republic being decided in your bedchamber? No, master, Gaius stammers, his voice barely a whisper. The carts. There was a blockage in the Sabura. The carts, Orbilius repeats, his voice a silky, dangerous purr. He is now standing directly in front of the terrified boy. The city's commerce must, of course, take precedence over your education, a vital lesson in economics. However, there is another lesson that must be taught this morning. A lesson in punctuality. He raises the ferula. Hold out your hand. Gaius hesitates, his eyes welling with tears. Please, master. The hand, Orbilius commands, his voice dropping to a growl. Slowly, shakily, the boy extends his right hand, palm up. The other boys, including you, are now staring with laser-like focus at your own wax tablets. You trace the shape of a letter A over and over again with your fingernail, not daring to look up. You don't need to see it. You know the sequence. There is a sharp, distinct whack that cuts through the air, followed by a choked, high-pitched yelp. You flinch, your own hand tingling in sympathy. The other one, Orbilius says, his voice completely calm. Another whack, another stifled cry. Now go to your seat, and let this be a reminder to all of you. Your time is my time. Your attention is my property. I am not paid enough to tolerate laziness or excuses. He walks back to his cathedra, his point made. Gaius, clutching his hands to his chest, his face streaked with tears and snot, scurries to an empty spot on the first bench and tries to make himself small. This is the reality of your education. The entire system is built on a foundation of pain and humiliation. While a few enlightened philosophers might write about nurturing a child's mind, the day-to-day practice in a common ludus like this is far more brutal. Historians still debate whether this level of extreme physical punishment was a universally accepted norm in all Roman schools, or if it was a caricature, a stereotype exaggerated by satirists like Martial and Juvenal to critique the failings of the system. Some argue that many teachers must have been kinder, more patient. But for you, sitting on this hard bench, listening to the echo of the blow and the sound of Gaius's quiet sobbing, the debate feels entirely academic. The ferula is very, very real. It is the primary tool of instruction. It's almost funny, in a dark way, in a few years. The Roman army will conquer foreign tribes with the sword. But first, the Roman school must conquer its children with the cane. Orbilius settles into his chair with a sigh of satisfaction, as if this morning ritual has calmed his nerves. He looks over all of you, his gaze lingering for a moment on each face. He is confirming his dominance. He is reminding you of the financial transaction that underpins this whole affair. Your father pays him a meager fee each month, a sum that Orbilius considers an insult. It's barely enough to rent this squalid alcove and keep him in cheap wine. And in his twisted logic, this gives him the right to inflict as much misery as he sees fit. He isn't here to inspire you. He is here to drill information into you by force, to break you and remold you into a functional, literate Roman. Your personal well-being is not part of the contract. He picks up his own stylus and taps it sharply against the wooden frame of his chair. Tap, tap, tap. The sound is sharp, demanding, cutting through the renewed clangor from the blacksmith's shop. It is the signal. The first lesson of the day is about to begin. Your stomach clenches. You grip your stylus, your knuckles white. You stare down at the black wax, a perfect, empty void. And you pray to any god that might be listening that you can make it to midday without your own hands feeling the sting of the master's fennel stalk cane. The sharp, triple tap of the stylus against the wooden chair cuts through the air, a sound more commanding than any shout. It's the starting gun for your intellectual marathon. Tablets, or bilious commands, his voice flat and devoid of any encouraging warmth. Tabulae. You obey instantly. Placing your clumsy writing apparatus on your lap, it feels heavy, substantial, a block of wood in a world that you wish was as light as papyrus. Your tablet is a diptych, which is the standard, affordable model for a boy of your station. 2 rectangular panels of a common wood, perhaps beech or fir, are bound together on one long edge by a simple leather cord threaded through drilled holes, acting as a hinge. The outside is plain, unfinished wood, scarred and dented from being dropped, banged against walls, and generally abused during your daily travels. You open it like a book. The inside is where the magic, or rather the misery, happens. Both interior faces have been hollowed out, leaving a shallow recess surrounded by a raised wooden frame. This recess is filled with a layer of blackened beeswax. This isn't the clean, sweet-smelling wax of a honeycomb. It's a carefully prepared and frankly gloomy substance. It's a common fact that to make the scratches visible, the Romans mixed the beeswax with a dark pigment, usually soot scraped from the inside of a lamp or chimney. The result is a perpetually dark, slightly soft surface that carries a faint, greasy smell of smoke and old wax. It looks like a rectangle of solid darkness. You run your finger over the surface. It's cool to the touch and yields slightly under the pressure. A texture unlike anything else. This is your canvas. This is your notebook, your worksheet, and your scratch pad, all in one. Wealthier students might have polyptychs with 3, 4, or even more panels hinged together, allowing for more writing space. But your simple 2-panel setup means you will be constantly erasing and resmoothing. Your work as ephemeral as a drawing on a foggy window pane. The whole contraption feels less like a tool for enlightenment and more like a primitive, reusable sandwich board for jotting down insults. You idly wish for a pro version, maybe one with a brighter, less depressing wax color, or a hinge that doesn't squeak. Now, for the second piece of your academic toolkit, the stylus. Orbilius holds his up for all to see, pinching it between his thumb and forefinger as if displaying a rare jewel. Your stylus is an extension of your mind, he says, a phrase you've heard him repeat a dozen times. If your letters are clumsy, it is because your mind is clumsy. You look at your own stylus. It is a length of iron, about the size of a modern pen, but heavier. It was likely hammered out by the very blacksmith whose work is currently providing the day's deafening soundtrack. One end has been sharpened to a needle-fine point. This is the business end, the part that incises the letters into the wax. The other end has been hammered flat into a broad, spatula-like shape, slightly wider than your thumb. This is the eraser, the tool of correction and regret. Some boys have styli made of bronze or polished bone, but iron is the standard, and it has a cold, unforgiving feel in your hand. Today, Orbilius announces, beginning to pace slowly between the benches, his sandals scuffing on the dirt floor. We will perfect the letter B. You will write it 100 times. Each one must be perfect. Straight back, 2 full bellies. No leaning, no wavering. A collective, internal groan ripples through the students. The letter B. You have been perfecting the letter B for what feels like an eternity. The sheer, soul-crushing monotony of the task is a form of torture in itself. There are no fun songs about the alphabet, no colorful pictures of a bear or a boat. There is only the abstract shape, to be repeated endlessly until your hand cramps and your mind goes numb. You grip your stylus. The technique is everything. You have to hold it at a specific angle, applying just the right amount of pressure. You press the point into the black wax and begin to draw the straight vertical line of the B. It's not a smooth, flowing motion like a pen on paper. It's a controlled scratch. You can hear the sound it makes, a faint, dry, scraping noise, like a tiny insect dragging its legs through sand. The sound is immediately swallowed by the clang from the forge, but you can feel the vibration of the scratching through the stylus into your very bones. Scrappy. That's the back of the B. Now, for the 2 loops. This is the tricky part. You have to curve the line, maintaining even pressure, to form the top belly. Too much pressure, and you risk gouging the wax too deeply, perhaps even cutting all the way through to the wood below. This is a grave offense. It ruins the tablet and earns you, at a minimum, a sharp rap on the knuckles with the flat of Orbilius's own stylus. Too little pressure, and the line is faint, weak, and cowardly, as Orbilius likes to call it. You complete the first B, it's passable. The back is mostly straight. The loops are a little lopsided, but it's recognizable. Now you have to do it 99 more times. You begin the second B. Scrappy. You can already feel the familiar ache beginning in the muscles of your hand, the tight pinch between your thumb and forefinger. Around you, a chorus of tiny scraping sounds rises and falls, a dry, papery whisper of collective effort. It's the only sound the boys themselves are making. On your 7th B, your hand slips. The bottom loop is a jagged, ugly mess. You sigh, a tiny puff of air. Now you have to erase it. You flip the stylus around in your hand, gripping the pointed end and using the flat spatula. You press the flat edge onto the waxy surface and begin to rub. It's a frustrating, inefficient process. You have to smear the wax back and forth, trying to push the soft material back into the grooves you just carved. It doesn't really erase the letter. It just smudges it into an upper. grayish blur. The ghost of your mistake is always there. A faint impression that you can still see if you tilt the tablet to the light. It's a permanent record of your failure. For a larger mistake, say, if you wrote the wrong letter entirely, the process is even more maddening. You have to work on the wax for a full minute, rubbing and smoothing, your arm getting tired, just to create a semi-blank space that is now visibly more churned up and uneven than the rest of the surface. Scholars sometimes debate the exact methods used for erasing large portions of text, whether the wax was simply smoothed over as best as possible for daily work, or if tablets were frequently taken home to be heated gently near a fire. The idea is that a little warmth would soften the entire surface, allowing it to be smoothed into a pristine, like new sheet. It's a nice theory, but it's of no help to you now. In this cold, noisy alcove, with Orbilius prowling like a wolf, there's no fire here, only the frantic, imperfect smoothing with the back of your stylus. Your only option is to smudge, hide your mistakes, and pray he doesn't look too closely. An hour passes, or maybe it's a decade. Time seems to warp in this space, stretching and compressing with the rhythm of the blacksmith's hammer. Your hand is a knot of pain. Your tablet is a mess of 90 or so B's. Some decent, some shameful. You are so focused on the task, on the sheer mechanical repetition, that you barely notice when Orbilius stops beside the bench in front of you. He is looming over a small, wiry boy named Marcus. "Let me see," Orbilius says. Marcus, trembling, lifts his tablet. Orbilius takes it from him and holds it up, his lip curling in disgust. What is this? Are these the letters of a Roman? Or the scratchings of a sick chicken? He points with his stylus at a particularly wobbly B. This is an insult to me, an insult to your father who wastes his money on you, and an insult to the great Latin tongue itself. He doesn't shout. He doesn't need to. His voice is low and dripping with contempt. He hands the tablet back to Marcus. Hold out your hand. The now familiar ritual plays out. The sharp whack of the ferula. The boy's gasp of pain. The other students pretending to be fascinated by their own work. You risk a glance at the boy who was punished yesterday. Gaius. He is watching the scene with wide, knowing eyes, his own hands tucked protectively under his legs. There's a strange, grim camaraderie in the shared experience of pain, but it's a bond no one would ever want. After the punishment, Orbilius declares the writing lesson over. Put away your tablets. Take out your calculi. You eagerly close your tablet, the two wooden panels shutting with a satisfying clack. You are more than happy to be done with the letter B. You reach into a small leather pouch on your belt and pull out your calculating tool. It is a small, portable hand abacus. It consists of a bronze frame, about the size of your hand, with several vertical slots. Within these slots are small, bead-like pebbles, the calculi from which we get the modern word calculate. This device is the Roman version of a calculator, and it perfectly illustrates why they were better at building roads than at developing advanced mathematics. The system is based on their clumsy numerals. There's a slot for units I, with beads that count from 1 to 4. A separate bead above the slot represents 5V. The next slot is for tens X, with beads for 10, 20, 30, and 40, and a separate bead for 50 cell L, and so on for hundreds C and thousands M to do math. You slide these beads up and down in their slots. It's a masterpiece of unnecessarily complex design. There is no zero. Large-scale multiplication or division is a nightmare best left to specialists. For a modern brain, it feels like trying to send an email using 2 tin cans and a string. The problem is on the board, Orbilius says, pointing to a larger, whitewashed wooden board propped against the wall. He has written a simple addition problem on it, with a piece of charcoal CX1 plus LXX 126 plus 87. You stare at the problem, then down at your abacus. First, you have to set up the first number. You go to the 100 slot and push up 1 bead for C. You go to the 10 slot and push up 2 beads for XX. You go to the 1 slot, push up the V bead for 5, and 1 more I bead for 1. Your abacus now reads 126. The little bronze beads feel cool and slippery against your fingertips. Now, you must add 87. You start with the 10s. You need to add 80 L and XXX. You slide the L bead for 50 down. Now, you need to add 3 X beads for 30. You already have 2 X beads pushed up. You push up 2 more, which fills the bottom of the slot. Now, you have to perform a carry. You clear the 10 slot and push up 1 bead in the 100 slot. It's confusing, requires multiple steps, and is incredibly easy to mess up. You focus, your tongue stuck between your teeth in concentration. You slide the beads, your brow furrowed. The little clicks of the calculi against their bronze frame is a new sound in the room. You think you have the answer. You look up for a moment to clear your head, and in that instant, your elbow bumps the abacus on your lap. It tilts. The little bronze beads, governed by gravity and malice, slide out of position. Your calculation is gone, instantly erased. A wave of cold dread washes over you. You just had it. Now, it's a jumble of meaningless beads. Worse, in the commotion, one of the tiny beads, a calculus no bigger than a pea, pops out of its slot, falls to the dirt floor, and rolls under the bench. You freeze. Absolute, cold sweat-inducing panic. The bead is gone. Your calculation is gone. Orbilius is still pacing, his ferula tapping against his leg. If you try to look for the bead, he will see you. He will know you are clumsy, that you ruined the problem. He will assume you are not paying attention. Your hand will feel the sting of the cane. If you don't look for the bead, your abacus is now useless. You cannot complete this problem or any other one. You are trapped. You stare at the empty spot on your abacus, the space where the little bronze bead used to be, and your mind goes as blank as your freshly smoothed wax tablet. Time stretches and distorts in your frozen state of panic. The tiny, empty slot on your abacus seems to mock you, a void representing your imminent failure. Orbilius is moving down the aisles, his shadow falling over the boys one by one as he inspects their work. He is 2 students away from you. 1 student away. You can hear the soft scuff of his sandals on the dirt floor. Your heart is a frantic drum against your ribs, a desperate rhythm completely at odds with the steady, metallic clang from the forge next door. You brace yourself for the inevitable question, the demand to see your work, the discovery of your clumsiness, and the punishment that will surely follow. He stops beside your bench. This is it. You squeeze your eyes shut for a second. A final, silent plea to the gods of luck and small metal objects. And then a miracle, or something like it. You feel a tiny, subtle nudge against your ankle. You risk opening your eyes and glancing down. The boy next to you, a quiet, perpetually nervous child named Lucius, is staring intently at his own abacus, his face a perfect mask of concentration, but with his foot, hidden from the teacher's view under the bench, he has discreetly pushed a small object toward you. It's a calculus, a spare bead. Where did he get it? Does he carry extras precisely for emergencies like this? It doesn't matter. It's an act of solidarity so profound in this atmosphere of pure self-preservation that it almost brings tears to your eyes. With movements born of pure adrenaline, you bend down slightly, pretending to adjust your sandal. Your fingers brush the dirt floor, closing around the precious, cool metal of the bead. You straighten up, your movements as casual as you can manage, and with your hand cupped, you guide the little bead back into its empty slot on your abacus. It clicks home with a sound that is, to you, the sweetest music in the world. Orbilius grunts, either in satisfaction at Lucius's correct answer or in general disapproval of the world, and moves on. He doesn't even glance at you. The wave of his attention has passed over, leaving you trembling but intact. You shoot a quick, infinitesimally small nod of gratitude toward Lucius. He doesn't acknowledge it, his focus still locked on his work. The alliance is unspoken, temporary, and based entirely on mutual terror. In the dog-eat-dog world of Orbilius's school, it's the closest thing to friendship you have. The arithmetic lesson finally, mercifully, grinds to a halt. A few more boys are quizzed. One more receives a half-hearted rap on the knuckles for a misplaced bead. And then Orbilius claps his hands together with an air of finality. Enough. Your minds are clearly too feeble for numbers today. We will turn to what even a dullard can master through repetition. We will turn to the letters. Put away your calculi. You have never been so happy to put the clattering, confusing abacus back into its leather pouch. The relief is short-lived, however, because you know what comes next. It is, in many ways, the centerpiece of your primary education. It is the long, slow, arduous grind of turning sounds into sense. A process the Romans approached with all the subtlety of a siege engine. Prepare your voices, Orbilius commands. He stands before the class, his posture straight, his expression grim. He is no longer just a teacher. He is a conductor of a choir of the damned. The lesson is simple. He will say a sound. You will repeat it. You will do this until he decides you are done. There is no nuance. There is no joy. There is only the sound. This is the very foundation of Roman literacy, a fact of education as solid as the stone of the Colosseum. You learn your letters not by sight alone, but by sound, by chanting them into existence over and over again. Orbilius takes a breath. His mouth opens. Ah, the sound hangs in the air for a moment, sharp and clear. It is the first letter of the alphabet, the beginning of all things. Now, it is your turn. Along with the other dozen boys, you take a breath and respond, your young voices merging into a single, monotonous wave of sound. Ah, your voice feels rough, unused. The sound is flat, devoid of the teacher's sharp authority. Orbilius frowns, again, with feeling, as if you are a Roman, not a bleating sheep. You all shout back, a little louder this time. The boy who was punished for being late, Gaius, puts a little too much enthusiasm into it, and his voice cracks, earning him a venomous glare from the master. He visibly shrinks, and so it begins. The endless alphabet grind. Bay, Orbilius calls out, giving the letter its phonetic name. Bay, you all drone back. K, K, day, day, on and on it goes. The sounds are abstract, disconnected from any meaning. It's not A for amor or B for bellum. It's just AH, Bay, K. The relentless rhythmic chanting soon becomes a hypnotic drone. Your mind begins to wander. You think of the warm bakery you passed this morning. You think of the stray dog in the alley. You wonder what your father is doing in his workshop. The clang of the blacksmith's hammer next door becomes a part of the rhythm, a brutal percussion accompanying your vocalizations. Clang, F, clang, gay, clang, ha. It is. You imagine what insanity must sound like. A modern observer might call it a colossal waste of time, an auditory assault designed to stamp out any spark of curiosity a child might have. You might joke that this educational style is probably why ancient Rome had so many Stoic philosophers after a childhood like this. Embracing emotional detachment would be a perfectly logical coping mechanism. After you have chanted your way through the entire alphabet twice, Orbilius decides it is time to move to the next, even more soul-crushing stage of the lesson syllabication. This is the core of the Roman method. Now that you have mastered the individual sounds, or at least repeated them enough times to satisfy the teacher, you must learn to combine them. Orbilius points to the large, whitewashed board. He has written a series of syllables on it. Babebi bobu kasechiko kudadedi dodu. We will now give voice to the sinews of our language, he announces grandly. The syllables begin with me. He points to the first syllable. B-A, B-A, you all chant. B, B, B-I, B-I, B-O, B-O, B, B. Your mouth feels clumsy, forming the shapes of the sounds. The meaningless repetition is even more potent now. The sounds blur together into a single, long, undulating drone. Baby bee-bo-boo. It sounds like baby talk, and you feel a faint flush of humiliation, as if you are being actively made more stupid by the process. You look at the other boys. Their faces are slack, their eyes glazed over. They are no longer thinking. They are merely sound-producing machines, a dozen fleshy automatons powered by fear. This method, this endless, mind-numbing repetition, is the subject of some debate for future historians. They will argue over its effectiveness. Did this phonetic drilling produce a generation of uniquely proficient but uninspired readers? Their brains hardwired to the sounds of the language through sheer brute force? Or did it simply dull their minds, creating citizens who could read a legal notice or a military order, but couldn't appreciate the beauty of a line of poetry? Was it an efficient system for a sprawling, bureaucratic empire, or a pedagogical failure of imagination? Sitting here, chanting fa, fe, fi, fo, fu, while the forge hammer rings in your ears, you land firmly on the side of pedagogical failure. You feel your imagination not being sparked, but systematically extinguished. Orbilius prowls the rows as you chant. His ears are preternaturally sharp, attuned to the slightest deviation from the collective drone. He is listening for the boy whose attention has drifted, whose DI is a fraction of a second late, whose GO is mumbled instead of projected. He finds his victim. He stops beside a boy in the front row and listens intently as you all chant the L syllables. Li, li. The boy's voice is weak, distracted. Orbilius's hand shoots out and grabs the boy's ear, twisting it sharply. Marcus, he hisses. The name of the boy he punished earlier. Your voice offends the gods. Are you with us? Or are you dreaming of the circus? I am with you, master. Marcus whimpers, his eyes wide. Then prove it. The M syllables alone. The rest of you fall silent. The forge hammer falls silent. The entire world seems to hold its breath. Marcus, his face pale, has to perform a solo. Ma, he begins, his voice trembling. Me, my, mo, emi, louder, mu. He finishes, almost shouting. Orbilius releases his ear. See that you remain focused. He turns back to the rest of you, from the beginning. And so, the grind starts all over again. Your throat is becoming raw. The air in the alcove is hot and stale. The sun is climbing higher in the sky, and a beam of dusty light now cuts across the room, illuminating the floating particles of dust and smoke. After what feels like several lifetimes, the syllable chant finally ends. But you are not free. Now, you must apply these sounds to actual words, and then to sentences. But these are not fun stories or interesting fables. Orbilius turns to the board and, with his piece of charcoal, slowly writes a new sentence. It is a dry, moralistic maxim, a favorite of the old, stern Romans. It's a phrase attributed to Cato the Elder, a man famous for being as fun as a root canal. Rem tene, verba sequenter. Grasp the subject. The words will follow. Orbilius translates, his voice filled with smug satisfaction. A lesson you would all do well to learn. You will now copy this sentence onto your tablets 10 times, and then you will recite it until I am satisfied. The phrase is utterly meaningless to you. What subject? What words? It's an abstract concept that has no connection to your world of scraped knees, harsh teachers, and the smell of cattle. It's like being told to memorize a line of computer code without ever having seen a computer. Yet, this is your task. You open your wax tablet again, the black surface seeming to absorb your will to live. You pick up your stylus and begin the laborious process of scratching the letters. R, E, M. The work is slow, your hand still aching from the morning's alphabet practice. The irony of the sentence is not lost on you. You are being forced to copy words about a subject you do not grasp in the slightest. You feel like a human printing press, a machine for reproducing letters, with no thought required or, indeed, desired. A truly funny joke would be to ask Orbilius to explain the deep epistemological implications of the phrase, but you suspect the only thing you'd grasp in return is the ferula around you. The chanting starts again, but this time it's the full sentence. A dozen voices, droning in a disjointed, arrhythmic chorus. Rem tene, verba sequentur. Rem tene, verba sequentur. The sound fills the small space, bouncing off the back wall of the forge, mingling with the hammer blows, your own scratching, and the distant noises of the Roman Forum. It is the sound of your education. It is the sound of your childhood. It is a hollow, repetitive, endless grind. You bow your head over your tablet, scratching another letter into the wax, the vibration of the chanting traveling from the floor, up your legs, and into your very bones, where it settles like a fine layer of dust. The drone of rem tene, verba sequentur, has burrowed deep into your skull, a mindless insect buzzing in the chambers of your brain. Your throat is raw, your mind is numb, and your hand is a single, unified cramp from gripping the stylus. The air in the alcove has grown thick and hot, heavy with the smells of sweat, coal smoke, and the oppressive midday heat. The sun is now almost directly overhead, its brutal, white light beating down on the streets of Rome, making the shadows short and sharp. This high sun signals a moment you have been desperately awaiting. Merides, midday, the break. Orbilius seems to feel it too. He brings the recitation to an abrupt halt by slapping his ferula hard against his thigh. The sharp crack silences the last lingering chant. "You may go," he says, his voice gravelly with fatigue. "Return in 1 hour. Do not be late." The words are a key turning a lock. A wave of motion sweeps through the benches as a dozen boys, suddenly animated, scramble for the exit. It's not a cheerful, laughing dismissal. It's a desperate, silent flight, like small animals escaping a trap. You shove your wax tablet and stylus into your satchel, not caring if the letters you so painstakingly carved get smudged. You join the exodus, stumbling out from under the relative darkness of the pergola into the blinding glare of the sun. The change is immediate and overwhelming. The world is a cacophony of light and sound. The Forum Boarium, which was just beginning to stir when you arrived in the dark, is now at the peak of its daily frenzy. The air is filled with 1,000 competing noises, the bellowing of an auctioneer selling cattle, the high-pitched patter of merchants haggling over the price of grain, the rhythmic chanting of priests from a nearby temple, and the general, undifferentiated roar of a massive crowd. It's a stark contrast to the monotonous, controlled misery of the classroom. Here, life is messy, loud, and vibrant. You don't have money to buy lunch from one of the many smoking thermopolia whose savory smells now seem to fill the entire world. Your lunch is what you brought from home. You find a sliver of shade on the steps of a small temple dedicated to Portunus, the god of harbors, and unwrap the cloth bundle your mother packed for you. Inside is a hunk of the same dark, hard bread from this morning. But today, it's accompanied by a small wedge of salty sheep's cheese and 3 wrinkled olives. To you, it is a feast fit for an emperor. You eat slowly, making it last, your eyes scanning the chaotic theater of the forum. This is a core truth of Roman life. All paths, all stories, all business eventually lead to the forum. It is the heart, stomach, and brain of the city all rolled into one. You watch a wealthy senator, his toga impossibly white, being carried through the crowd in a litter borne by 6 sweat-drenched slaves. He reclines on his cushions, looking bored, as his clients' men who depend on his patronage scurry alongside him like anxious pilot fish. In another corner, a storyteller has gathered a small crowd, his arms waving dramatically as he recounts a myth about Hercules wrestling a giant. Not far from him, a man with a trained monkey is making the poor creature dance for a few tossed coins. You notice a group of boys, about your age, playing a game near a fountain. They are not schoolboys. Their tunics are ragged, their faces are dirty, and their feet are bare. They are the children of the truly poor, the ones for whom a school fee, however meager, is an impossible luxury. They are playing a game of nooses or nuts, tossing walnuts at a small pyramid of others, trying to knock them down. Their shouts and laughter are genuine, free from the oppressive fear that hangs over your own life. For a fleeting, bitter moment, you envy them. Their lives are undoubtedly harder, more precarious than yours. Yet in this single moment, they seem infinitely more free. It's a strange and cruel calculation to make in your head, weighing your privileged misery against their carefree poverty. It makes you feel guilty and resentful at the same time. The rigid class structure of Rome is a cruelty all its own, boxing everyone into their designated roles. Your brief respite, your hour of freedom, evaporates like a puddle in the summer sun. The shadows have begun to lengthen again, just slightly, a sign that the hour is almost up. A fresh wave of dread washes over you, even more potent than the morning's anxiety. The cruelty of the system isn't just the punishment, it's the hopelessness. It's the knowledge that you have to go back. The afternoon session is always worse. The initial energy of the morning has been burned away, leaving behind a residue of exhaustion and frayed tempers. Orbilius, who was merely irritable in the morning, will likely be actively malevolent after his own midday meal and a cup of sour wine. You gather your things and begin the short walk back to the alcove. The other boys are doing the same. Their faces grim, their steps slow. The desperate flight from the school has become a funereal procession back to it. You are no longer running from a trap. You are dutifully placing your own head back into the noose. You arrive to find Orbilius already seated on his cathedra, his eyes scanning the returning students. He looks tired, and his face is flushed, confirming your suspicion about the midday wine. The heat in the pergola is now truly suffocating. The air is stagnant and thick, and the warmth radiating from the blacksmith's wall feels less like a comfort and more like the heat from an oven you are slowly being cooked in. "Tablets," he commands, his voice thick. "On your laps. Open." You do as you're told. your heart sinking. The afternoon session will not be new material. It will be inspection, review, judgment. This is a subject of debate for some historians who question whether the afternoons were dedicated to new lessons or simply to reinforcing the morning's drills. For you, the distinction is meaningless. It's all the same grind, but now with the added terror of a formal evaluation. Orbelius begins his slow, predatory patrol of the benches. He is no longer teaching, he is auditing. He is inspecting the 10 perfect copies of rem tene, verba sequentur, that he commanded you to produce. He snatches the tablet from the boy at the end of the first row and scrutinizes it. You hold your breath. Sloppy, he declares, his voice low. The E in tene is cowardly. It leans like a drunkard. He doesn't even bother with the ferula. He simply takes his own stylus and, with a vicious scrape, scratches a huge X across the boy's entire page of work, destroying it completely. Do it again, 20 times. The psychological cruelty is sometimes more effective than the physical. The boy looks like he's been slapped, his face crumbling as he stares at his ruined work. Orbelius moves to the next boy, then the next. You watch his progress, your anxiety building with each step he takes. Your own tablet sits on your lap. You had been careful. Your letters were as straight as you could make them. Your spacing was even. It was, you thought, a good piece of work. You had calculated the risks, paid attention, and produced what was asked of you. He arrives at your bench. Yours, he grunts, holding out his hand. You pass him your tablet, your hand shaking slightly. He holds it close to his face, his beady eyes narrowing. He traces the lines of your letters with his dirty fingernail. The silence stretches, broken only by the relentless clang of the forge. For a moment, you think you might have passed. You might have actually survived the inspection. Then he stops. He stabs his finger at your 8th repetition of the sentence. Here, he says, what is this? You squint, trying to see the flaw. It looks perfect to you. I don't know. Master, you don't know. He sneers. Look at the V in verba, the second stroke. It is a hair's breadth shorter than the first. A hair's breadth. Do you think the Roman language is built on a hair's breadth? Do you think our laws, our legions, our very empire are held together by such imprecision? He is manufacturing a flaw. He is inventing a mistake where there is none, simply because his cruel temperament demands a victim. The injustice of it stings more than any physical blow. All your careful work, your concentration, your desperate attempt to be perfect, all for nothing. It was a rigged game from the start. This is not diligence, he proclaims to the class, holding your tablet up as an example of failure. This is laziness masquerading as effort. It is an insult. He throws the tablet back into your lap. The wooden hinge cracks under the force of the impact. Hold out your hand. You knew it was coming. But the command still makes your stomach plummet. Your careful calculations have all been for naught. There is no winning. There is only varying degrees of losing. Slowly, you extend your right hand, palm upward. The heat, the noise, the feeling of utter hopelessness all coalesce into this single, terrible moment. You stare at your own hand, detached, as Orbelius raises his cane. The cruelty of the day is not just in the sting you are about to feel, but in the cold, hard calculation that no matter what you do, tomorrow will be exactly the same. You stare at your outstretched hand, a small, trembling platform awaiting the inevitable blow. The air is thick and hot. The blacksmith's hammer next door provides a rhythmic, almost ceremonial percussion for the punishment. Orbilius's face is a mask of grim satisfaction. He has found his excuse, his manufactured outrage, and now comes the release. The ferula whistles through the heavy air and makes contact with your palm with a sharp, stinging crack. The pain is immediate, a flash of white-hot fire that radiates up your arm. You bite your lip to keep from crying out, refusing to give him the satisfaction. He administers a second blow to the same spot for good measure. Precision, he says, his voice low and venomous. That is the soul of a Roman. Learn it. He moves on, leaving you with a throbbing hand and a burning sense of injustice. You cradle your hand in your lap, the pain already subsiding into a dull, pulsing ache. But the emotional sting lingers. You did everything right, and you were still punished. It's a powerful lesson, though not the one Orbilius intended. The lesson is that the system is arbitrary, and that authority is not always just. That day bleeds into the next, and the next into a month, and the month into a year. The seasons turn outside your noisy, grimy alcove. You see the forum decorated for Saturnalia, and you watch it fill with vendors for the spring festivals. The boys on the benches around you change. Some, like the perpetually terrified Gaius, simply disappear one day. Their fathers having decided that the cost of this education outweighs its benefits, pulling them from school to begin work in a shop or on a farm. New, younger boys arrive, their faces fresh with a fear you remember all too well, and you watch them learn the same harsh lessons you did. You are now one of the older boys, a veteran of Orbilius's war on childhood. You are perhaps 12 years old. The monotonous drills of the alphabet and the syllables are burned into your memory. You can perform basic calculations on the abacus without dropping the beads. You can copy a sentence with near-perfect form, though you still don't understand the point of most of them. You have learned not through inspiration, but through a long, slow process of attrition. Orbilius hasn't taught you to love learning. He has beaten the mechanics of literacy into you. Then, one evening, everything changes. Your father, sitting at the small wooden table in your family's apartment, looks at you over his cup of wine. Your time with the literator is finished, he announces, his tone as matter-of-fact as if he were discussing the price of oil. You have learned what he has to teach. On the calends of next month, you will begin your studies with a grammaticus. You stare at him, unsure of how to react. Graduating. It's not a word anyone uses, but that's what this is. This is the moment you have dreamed of, the end of your sentence in Orbilius's prison. Yet, there is no celebration. It's a purely practical decision, an obscure fact of Roman life that this crucial transition is marked with no ceremony whatsoever. There's no diploma scroll, No congratulatory feast. No proud handshake. Your father has simply judged you ready for the next stage and, more importantly, he has managed to save the considerable sum required to pay the higher fees of a secondary teacher. Your last day at the pergola is surreal. You go through the motions of the chants and the copying, but you feel detached, as if you are watching yourself from a great distance. You look at Lucius Orbilius, at his sour face and his frayed toga, and you feel nothing. Not hatred, not fear, not even relief. Just a vast, hollow emptiness. He is no longer a monster. He is just a sad, angry man in a dirty alcove. You don't say goodbye. At the end of the day, you simply pack your things, walk out into the forum, and know that you will never come back. The thought that you'll never have to figure out an appropriate, yet cheap, Saturnalia gift for a man you despise is a small, private joy. A few weeks later, your father takes you to your new school. The difference is staggering. You leave the chaotic, manure-scented air of the Forum Boarium behind and walk towards the cleaner, more stately environs of the Palatine Hill. Your new school is not a lean-to. It is a large, rented room, a cenaculum like your own apartment, but on the ground floor of a respectable stone building. There are actual windows with wooden shutters that can be opened to let in light and closed to keep out the noise. The relentless clang of the blacksmith is replaced by the distant, more dignified hum of the main forum. Inside, about 15 boys are seated, not on rough benches, but on individual stools. They are all older than the boys at your last school, ranging from your age to their mid-teens. They are dressed in finer tunics, and several are attended by Greek pedagogy who wait patiently by the walls. The air smells not of sweat and smoke, but of oiled wood and old papyrus. And then you meet the teacher. He is a grammaticus, a teacher of literature and grammar, and he is a world away from Orbilius. His name is Demetrius of Rhodes, and he is Greek, as many of the most respected grammarians are. He is tall and thin, with a neatly trimmed gray beard and intelligent eyes that seem to analyze everything they see. He wears a fine wool himation, the Greek style of cloak, over his tunic. He speaks Latin with a precise, elegant accent that makes your own street-level pronunciation sound clumsy and barbaric. He does not carry a ferula. His hands are clean, his fingernails immaculate. His authority comes not from a cane, but from an almost palpable aura of immense learning. Your father, who seemed a giant in your small apartment, appears humbled in the presence of this man. They speak quietly, money is discreetly exchanged, and your father leaves you in this strange new world. Demetrius gestures for you to take an empty stool. The transition from the school of the literator to that of the grammaticus is a critical step up the Roman social and educational ladder. Historians debate the typical age for this to happen, as it wasn't standardized by any central authority. It could be as early as 11 or as late as 14, depending entirely on a boy's perceived progress, his family's financial situation, and, most importantly, his father's ambitions for him, for you, at 12. It feels as if you've been plucked from the grimy deck of a cargo barge and placed in the perfumed stateroom of a pleasure yacht. Demetrius begins the day by outlining the curriculum. His voice is calm, melodic, and utterly serious. Here, he says, we leave behind the crude mechanics of letters. We will now study the fruits of those letters' literature, the foundation of all true knowledge. In the mornings, we will devote ourselves to the tongue of civilization, Greek. We will begin with the master, the divine Homer. He lets that name hang in the air. Homer, the name is legend. You feel a genuine spark of excitement, a feeling you had thought long dead. In the afternoons, he continues, we will apply the same rigor to our own Latin tongue. We will analyze the works of Ennius, Plautus, and Terence, and we will devote significant time to the great new epic of our age, the Aeneid of the divine Virgil. This is it. This is what all the years of chanting syllables and copying dull sentences was for. You are finally going to read the great stories, the epic poems about gods and heroes, war and adventure. For the first time in your life, you are actually eager for a lesson to begin. Demetrius walks to a large wooden chest in the corner of the room and takes out a handsome scroll, a volumen with ivory knobs at either end. He unrolls the first section of papyrus. The Iliad, he announces. Book 1, we begin, as all things must, at the beginning. He reads the first line aloud in Greek, and his voice is like music. Menin ide, Thea, Peleadeo Achilleos. Sing, goddess. The anger of Peleus' son Achilles. The sound is majestic, powerful. It fills the room with a sense of ancient power and importance. You are captivated. Then, the lesson begins in earnest, and your excitement curdles into a new and unfamiliar form of dread. Demetrius does not tell you the story. He does not explain who Achilles is or why he is angry. Instead, he points to the first word on the scroll. Menin. Anger. This is our first word, he says. Noun, accusative singular, third declension, from the root menes. Note the poetic form, the use of the Attic vowel. Homer could have used a more common word for anger, like cholos, but he chose menis. Why? Because menis implies a transcendent divine wrath, a rage with cosmic consequences. It sets the tone for the entire epic in a single word. He then moves to the second word, id. Sing. Verb, present imperative active. Second person singular. From the verb ido, notice the meter. The line begins with a dactyl long syllable, short, meaning a. This is dactylic hexameter, the meter of all epic. It is the heartbeat of the poem. You must learn to feel it, to scan it in your sleep. And so it continues. For the next hour, you do not progress past the first line. Every single word is placed on an operating table and systematically dissected. It is vivisected, its grammatical skin peeled back to reveal the sinews of its declension and the bones of its etymology. The epic story you were so excited to hear is completely ignored, buried under a mountain of pedantic analysis. This is not literature as entertainment or inspiration. This is literature as a complex mechanical puzzle. It is an autopsy. The other boys, veterans of this method, are already busy scratching notes on their own wax tablets, their faces impassive. You, the newcomer, are stunned. This is a new kind of cruelty. Orbilius's cruelty was simple, honest, a straightforward transaction of pain for perceived error. This is something else entirely. It's a cold, intellectual suffocation. Demetrius isn't beating your body. He's dissecting your soul's desire for story. For one brief, insane moment, you find yourself almost missing the simple, brainless chanting of baby, bye, bo, boo. At least then, you knew exactly what was expected of you. Here, you are adrift in a sea of grammatical terms you don't understand, and the life raft of a good story has just been meticulously dismantled in front of your eyes. The days with Demetrius fall into a new, more sophisticated rhythm of misery. The routine is unvarying, a two-act play performed Monday through Saturday. The morning is Greek. The afternoon is Latin. Each session begins in the same way, with a practice known as the praelectio. This is, you have to admit, the one part of the day that doesn't feel like a punishment. Demetrius will stand before the class, unroll a fresh section of a scroll, and read the day's chosen passage aloud. When he reads, something magical happens. The dry, analytical scholar disappears, and in his place stands a true performer. His voice, so precise and cutting during his grammatical dissections, becomes a resonant, emotive instrument. He doesn't just read the lines of Homer, he inhabits them. You hear the crash of the surf on the shores of Troy, the desperate pleas of Priam, the arrogant boast of Agamemnon. The dactylic hexameter ceases to be a technical concept and becomes a living, breathing pulse, the frantic heartbeat of battle or the sorrowful cadence of a funeral dirge. For those 5 minutes, you are transported. You understand why these stories have survived for centuries. You feel the power of the poetry, and then he stops. He rolls the scroll back up, places it on his desk, and the magic vanishes, extinguished as quickly as a candle flame in a gust of wind. The performer is gone, and the surgeon is back. The rest of the morning is spent placing those beautiful lines he just brought to life onto the operating table. Word by word, phrase by phrase, the autopsy begins anew. You learn about synecdoche and metonymy, about irregular verb forms and obscure dialectal variations. The vibrant story is bled dry of all its life and color, leaving only a desiccated skeleton of grammatical rules and rhetorical devices. After the dissection comes the homework, and it is always the same. Memorize the passage, not just the words, but the meter, the intonation, the very soul of the lines that Demetrius modeled in his praelectio. Tonight, your task is to commit 20 lines of the Odyssey to memory. The part where Odysseus cleverly blinds the Cyclops, Polyphemus, you walk home through the bustling streets of Rome, the scroll of copied lines clutched in your hand. The city's chaos, which once felt so overwhelming, is now a dull background hum. Your entire consciousness is focused on the words. You mumble them under your breath as you walk, trying to hammer them into your brain through sheer repetition. And I drove the olive stake, sharp and fiery, deep into his single eye. The words begin to lose their meaning. The epic struggle of a hero against a monster, devolving into a string of meaningless phonetic sounds. It's an eerie echo of your years with Orbilius, chanting ba, be, bo, boo. The material is more advanced, but the method is hauntingly similar. Crush the subject into dust through endless repetition, hoping some of it sticks. You can't help but think the great poets must have had a dark sense of humor, writing such tales of suffering as if they knew one day their work would be used as an instrument of torture in classrooms just like this one. That night, you lie on your thin mattress, long after your family is asleep, whispering the Greek lines into the darkness. The words feel alien and heavy in your mouth. You trace their shapes on your blanket with your finger. Sleep offers no escape. The meter of the verse invades your dreams, a relentless, galloping rhythm that carries you not to fantastical islands, but back to the dreaded classroom. The next morning, the air in the schoolroom is thick with a unique kind of terror. It's not the raw, physical fear of Orbilius's ferula. It is a colder, more refined anxiety, the fear of public failure. Recitation is the ultimate test. It is a performance. And Demetrius is the harshest critic in Rome. He begins the lesson by looking slowly around the room, his gaze lingering on each student. He is deciding who will be the first sacrifice. Marcus, he says, his voice soft. A lanky boy with a prominent Adam's apple stands up. You recognize him from Orbilius's school. His family's fortunes must have risen, allowing him to advance as well. He walks to the front of the room, his face pale. His task is to recite a passage of Virgil describing the death of a warrior. Marcus begins, his voice trembling slightly. He gets through the first 5 lines, his recitation wooden but accurate. But then he hesitates. He is searching for the next word. His eyes dart around the room as if the line might be written on the wall. The silence stretches out, becoming immense and uncomfortable. Demetrius does not tap a cane. He simply waits. Finally, Marcus stumbles through a misremembered version of the line, getting the verb tense wrong and shattering the meter. Demetrius holds up a hand to stop him. Thank you, Marcus, he says, his voice dripping with a polite, devastating disappointment. An interesting creative choice. To have our hero die in the future tense, it implies a sort of grammatical reincarnation that I'm sure Virgil never intended. Your meter was also innovative. It had all the grace of a donkey falling down a flight of stairs. The other boys stifle their laughter. It's a cruel, nervous laughter, born of relief that it isn't them. Marcus's face is burning a deep, painful red. He looks at the floor, utterly humiliated. Your memory is a blunt instrument, Marcus, Demetrius continues, his voice calm and analytical. You have memorized the words, but you have not understood the poetry. You have swallowed the meal, but you have not tasted it. Sit down. Perhaps someone else can demonstrate the difference between parroting and performing. Marcus scurries back to his seat. A broken boy. You feel a pang of pity for him, quickly followed by a surge of your own fear. This is the agony of epic poetry. It's not in the reading, but in the failing. Demetrius's cold eyes scan the room again. And then they land on you. You, he says, pointing a long, slender finger in your direction. The new boy. Let us see what Orbilius has prepared you for. The passage from the Aeneid. The opening. Arma virumque cano. Stand. Your heart leaps into your throat. It feels like it's trying to escape your body. Your legs feel weak as you push yourself to your feet. You walk to the front of the room, your sandals making no sound on the clean floor. The faces of the other boys blur into a single, judgmental mass. Demetrius's face is the only thing in focus. His expression, neutral, analytical. He is waiting to dissect you. Scholars in the distant future will debate the ultimate purpose of this whole educational ordeal. Was this relentless focus on memorizing and reciting poetry designed to create a generation of eloquent speakers and writers, to fill their minds with a rich storehouse of noble phrases and rhetorical tricks that they would later use in the Senate or the law courts? Or was it, perhaps, a more subtle form of cultural programming? A way to ensure that every boy who would one day be a part of the Roman ruling class shared a single, unified literary and moral DNA. A framework built on the Aeneid's paramount themes of piety, duty, and sacrificing one's own desires for the good of Rome. As you stand there, knees trembling, about to recite Virgil's opening lines, you don't care about the academic debate. You only care about not making a fool of yourself. You suspect the real goal is much simpler: to teach you your place in a world that values perfection and has no patience for failure. You take a deep breath. You close your eyes for a second, picturing the words you traced on your blanket last night, and you begin. Arma virumque cano, Troie qui primus ab oris. I sing of arms and of a man who first from the shores of Troy. Your voice is thin, reedy, but it's steady. You focus on the rhythm, on the meter Demetrius had explained, the rise and fall of the dactylic hexameter. Italiam fato profugus, laviniaque venit litera. An exile by fate came to Italy and the Lavinian shores. You get through the first 3 lines without a mistake. A tiny spark of confidence ignites within you. You can do this. You remember the next line, about how much he was tossed about on land and sea by the force of the gods above. Multum, ille, et terris iectatus et alto vi superum. Much tossed about on land and sea by the violence of the gods above. You are in the middle of the line. The words are flowing. You can feel the rhythm. And then, nothing. Your mind is a perfect, pristine, terrifying blank. The next word, the next syllable, has vanished as if it never existed. You are standing at the edge of a cliff, and the bridge has disappeared. You stop, your mouth half open. The silence that fills the room is a physical thing, a heavy blanket that smothers you. The eyes of the other boys are on you. You can feel their pity, their scorn, their relief. But worst of all is the quiet, patient, analytical gaze of Demetrius. He is not angry. He is not disappointed. He is simply waiting, giving you all the time in the world to fail completely and utterly on your own. And in that silence, you feel the true, agonizing weight of the epic poem. The silence in the room is absolute. It is a living thing, a pressure that builds in your ears, far heavier than the loudest clang of the blacksmith's hammer you endured for years. Your mind is a perfect white desert. The words you memorized so painstakingly moments ago, now utterly gone, evaporated under the heat of a dozen pairs of eyes. You stand, mouth agape, a statue of failure. The line you were reciting, multum ille et terris iactatus et alto visuperum, hangs unfinished in the air. Demetrius does not tap his foot or clear his throat. He simply watches you, his expression one of calm, scientific observation, as if you are a particularly interesting specimen of insect that has unexpectedly stopped moving. Finally, after an eternity that lasts perhaps 5 seconds, he speaks. His voice is not angry, but devastatingly calm and precise. Seve memoram unonis ob iram, he says, effortlessly supplying the rest of the line you had forgotten, on account of the mindful anger of cruel Juno. He lets the words settle in the quiet room. You see, he continues, addressing not you, but the class as a whole. The line hinges on the final phrase. The key to remembering it is to understand that the poet is answering the implicit question raised by the first part of the line. Why was he tossed about on land and sea, ob iram? On account of anger. The anger of Juno. The poetry has its own internal logic. If you had understood the logic, you would not have needed to simply remember the words. The words would have come to you. You are still trying to carry water in a sieve. You have not yet learned how to build a bucket. He dismisses you with a slight wave of his hand. Sit down. The walk back to your stool is the longest journey of your life. Your face is on fire. The humiliation is a physical weight, pressing down on your shoulders. Demetrius's method was, in its own way, far more brutal than Orbilius's. The old literator merely hurt your hand. Demetrius made you doubt your own mind. Several more years pass in this manner. You are now a young man, perhaps 15 or 16. The daily routine of dissection and recitation continues. You learn to build the bucket. You memorize thousands of lines of Homer, Virgil, and the comic playwrights. You can scan their meters in your sleep, identify every rhetorical device, and debate the subtle grammatical nuances of a sentence for an entire afternoon. You learn to appreciate the poetry not for its stories, but for its technical perfection, like an architect admiring an aqueduct not for the life-giving water it carries, but for the precise curve of its arches. The spark of youthful excitement you once felt is long gone, replaced by a kind of weary competence. Then, just as it did years before, the change comes abruptly one evening. Your father informs you that your time with the Grammaticus is over. You have learned all the literary examples you will need. It is time for the third and final stage of a Roman gentleman's education. It is time to learn what to do with all this knowledge. It is time for the rhetor. This is the pinnacle. The education provided by the literator was for basic functionality. The Grammaticus was for cultural literacy, a requirement for the respectable middle and upper classes, but the rhetor is for the elite. This is the final, expensive, and essential step for any young man destined for a career in the law courts, the military command, or the Senate. This is where you learn the art of persuasion, the single most important skill in the Roman public sphere. Your new school is in a different world entirely. It is held in a spacious, richly decorated room within the private villa of the rhetor himself, a man named Lucius Cotta. His villa sits atop the Palatine Hill, with a commanding view of the Forum Romanum below. The room is adorned with Greek statues, intricate floor mosaics, and walls painted with scenes from mythology, the very scenes you spent years dissecting. There are only 8 other students. You recognize them all by sight. They are the sons of senators, wealthy equestrians, and powerful landowners. They carry themselves with an unnerving confidence, an inherited ease that comes from knowing the world is theirs to inherit. The atmosphere is less like a school and more like an exclusive club for the future rulers of the world. And then there is Lucius Cotta, the rhetor. He is not a teacher in the mold of Orbilius or Demetrius. He is a force of nature. He is a celebrated advocate, famous for his dramatic courtroom victories. He is a former praetor, a man who has held significant political power. He is charming, witty, and effortlessly intimidating. He greets you not as a student, but as a junior colleague, his handshake firm, his smile engaging. He doesn't need a cane or intellectual condescension to command respect. His reputation does it for him. "Welcome," he says, his voice a rich baritone, accustomed to filling vast basilicas. You have all spent years gathering your tools. You have your letters from the forge of the literator. You have your exemplary models from the library of the Grammaticus. Here, you will learn to be craftsmen. You will learn to build an argument as a mason builds a wall, solid, elegant, and unbreachable. You will learn the art of oratory. He explains that this is not about philosophy or the search for abstract truth. Truth, he says with a wry smile, is often a matter of who argues most persuasively. We are not here to contemplate the stars. We are here to sway men's hearts, to sway their minds, and to win. In the law courts, in the Senate, in the camp before a battle, it is the man who can speak with force and clarity who will prevail. The curriculum is built around a series of practical, formulaic exercises. This is where you learn that the seemingly spontaneous and passionate speeches you have heard in the forum, in fact, highly structured compositions, as rigidly designed as a temple. The 2 pillars of this training, you soon learn, are the suasoria and the controversia. They are the obscure, technical heart of rhetorical education. The suasoria is a fictional advisory speech delivered to a historical figure at a moment of crisis. The controversia is a mock trial, a legal argument based on a hypothetical and often bizarre law, designed to test your ability to argue either side of a case. Your first major assignment is a suasoria. Cotta presents the scenario. The year is 216 BC. The Battle of Cannae has just ended. Hannibal has annihilated a Roman army of 80,000 men. He stands victorious on the plains of Italy. You are his most trusted general. You must deliver a speech advising him on his next move. Should he march his weary, but triumphant, army on Rome itself, or should he consolidate his gains and seek a political settlement? Prepare your arguments. Your mind buzzes. This is exciting. A real problem of history and strategy. You have your own ideas. You think marching on Rome is a mistake. Hannibal's strength is in mobile warfare, not sieges. You begin to formulate your arguments based on logic and history. Then, Cotta hands out a papyrus scroll outlining the mandatory structure for a suasoria. It is an ironclad formula. First, the exordium, a charming introduction to win the audience's goodwill. Second, the narration, a brief, clear statement of the situation. Third, the confirmatio, the main body where you present your arguments, which must be categorized under the headings of safety, honor, and utility. Fourth, the refutatio, where you anticipate and rebut the arguments of the opposing viewpoint. Finally, the peroratio, a stirring, emotional conclusion designed to leave a lasting impression. Any creative or original line of thought you had is immediately stifled. The task is not to have the best idea. The task is to pour your ideas into the correct pre-made containers. It's like being asked to write a passionate love letter using only the words from a legal contract. The process is a paint-by-numbers approach to persuasion. You spend the next week preparing your speech. You abandon your own strategic insights and instead focus on fitting your arguments into Cotta's framework. Is it honorable for Hannibal to march on Rome? Is it useful? Is it safe? The questions feel artificial, removed from the real, messy business of war. As you work, you begin to question the very nature of this education. Historians in a far-off future will debate this very point. Was this system, with its rigid formulas and recycled themes, designed to train truly agile and persuasive thinkers, giving them a powerful, flexible framework to build any argument? Or was it actually a tool for intellectual conformity, teaching the elite not how to think, but how to sound convincing while all thinking the same way, stifling originality in favor of polished, predictable, and ultimately safe arguments? You look around at your fellow students, all from powerful families, all diligently crafting their speeches. You realize the goal isn't to produce a revolutionary thinker like Socrates, who was executed for asking too many uncomfortable questions. The goal is to produce a new generation of Lucius Cotta's men who can expertly manage the existing system, who can argue passionately in favor of the status quo, and who can be trusted to uphold the traditions of the Republic. This is not education for philosophers. It is training for politicians and managers. The day of the presentations arrives. You are in the garden of Cotta's villa, a beautiful, sun-dappled peristyle with a bubbling fountain at its center. One by one, your classmates stand to deliver their speeches. One argues for the march on Rome, another against. Their arguments are different, but their structures are identical. They are all polished, well-reasoned, and completely devoid of any genuine fire. Then it is your turn. You stand before these sons of senators, before the powerful rhetor who holds your future in his hands. You have chosen to argue against the march on Rome. You have dutifully followed the formula. Your exordium is charming. Your narratio is clear. Your confirmatio is neatly divided into arguments about safety, honor, and utility. You are a craftsman. You have built your wall. Now, you must present it. You take a breath, the scent of jasmine from the garden filling your lungs, and you begin to speak. You take a breath, the scent of jasmine from the garden of Lucius Cotta's villa filling your lungs. You make eye contact with your powerful rhetor. Then let your gaze sweep across your audience of elite classmates. You begin your speech, your voice clearer and more confident than you thought possible. You argue against Hannibal marching on Rome. You don't speak from the heart. you speak from the formula. Your exordium is a masterpiece of false humility, praising Hannibal's genius before gently suggesting caution. Your narratio lays out the situation with crisp, military precision. Your confirmatio is the core of your argument, neatly divided into the three pillars of persuasion. You argue that marching on Rome is not safe because your army lacks siege equipment. It is not honorable because a failed siege would tarnish your invincible reputation. And it is not useful because consolidating power in southern Italy is the more strategic long-term goal. You tick every box. You follow the recipe to the letter. When you reach the peroratio, your grand conclusion, you let a carefully rehearsed tremor of passion enter your voice. You speak of the future of Carthage, of building a lasting empire, not gambling at all on a single, risky assault. You finish, and the silence that follows is not the empty, terrifying silence of failure you experienced in Demetrius's class, but a heavy, respectful silence of appraisal. Cotta nods slowly, a faint, approving smile on his lips. Competent, he declares. The structure was sound. The arguments were clear. You have mastered the form. In the world of high-stakes rhetoric, competent is high praise. It means you are a safe pair of hands. It means you are one of them. A wave of profound relief washes over you. You have cleared the final hurdle. You have proven you belong in this rarefied world. You spend the rest of the afternoon listening to your peers debate the finer points of Cicero's style, feeling a warm glow of success. As you walk home later, leaving the pristine, aristocratic air of the Palatine Hill, you feel a new sense of purpose. The years of misery, the fear of Orbilius's cane, the mind-numbing boredom of Demetrius's grammar, the high-pressure performances for Cotta, it was all worth it. It was the brutal entrance exam to the ruling class, and you have passed. As you descend into the more crowded, commercial parts of the city, the sights and smells bring you back to earth. The streets are teeming with life. Mule carts jostle for position. Shopkeepers shout their prices, and the air is a thick stew of cooking food, sweat, and cheap wine. You see a boy, no older than 10, his face smudged with dirt, struggling to haul a basket of pottery that looks heavier than he is. His father, a burly man with flour-dusted arms, shouts at him to hurry up. The boy will never learn dactylic hexameter. He will never debate the strategies of Hannibal. His education is happening right here, in the street, an apprenticeship in labor and survival. You remember the children you used to see from your bench in Orbilius's school, playing with knuckle bones in the dust. Their laughter, a maddening soundtrack to your misery. You always pitied yourself then, stuck with your wax tablet while they were free. Now, with the benefit of your full, miserable, and deeply privileged education, you see the scene for what it was. Their freedom was an illusion. It was the freedom of having no other options. The thought brings you up short. Historians of the future will debate the exact literacy rates of the Roman lower classes. Some will argue that a basic practical literacy, enough to read a tavern sign, a debt marker, or a simple inventory, was more common than once thought. Picked up in the workshop or the market stall, rather than the classroom. But as you look at the laboring boy, you know that the world of ideas, The world of poetry and history and law you now inhabit is as closed off to him as the moon. His life will be one of hard labor, and your terrible education is the very thing that has spared you from it. When you get back to your family's insula, you find your sister in the main room, supervising a servant girl who is grinding wheat. She is a young woman now, perhaps 17, and she is betrothed to the son of one of your father's business associates. The wedding is in a few months. She looks up as you enter, and her smile is warm and genuine. "How was the school of the great orator?" she asks, a hint of gentle teasing in her voice. "It was fine," you say. "I gave a speech." "Was it very clever?" "It was competent," you reply, echoing Kata's praise. She nods, her attention returning to the servant girl, whose grinding has become uneven. "Harder," she instructs her, her voice firm but not unkind, a consistent pressure. You watch her, and for the first time, you consciously consider the vast gulf between your lives. Her education has taken place entirely within the walls of this apartment. She never suffered under Orbilius or Demetrius. Her teachers were your mother and the daily rhythms of the household. She learned to read and write. Yes, your family is prosperous enough to value literacy in its daughters. But her education was pointed toward a single, specific goal: to become a capable Roman matrona. She can manage a household budget with more skill than most senators. She can assess the quality of wool, oversee the preparation of food for a dozen people, and command the respect and obedience of slaves. She knows the religious festivals and the proper offerings for each god. Her mind is sharp and practical. You once tried to explain a fine point of Virgilian grammar to her, and she listened patiently before asking, "But what is it for? Does it help you buy better olives?" Her question, which you dismissed as simple-minded at the time, now strikes you as profoundly astute. Your education is about public performance and abstract ideas. Hers is about the concrete, essential business of running a Roman home, the very foundation upon which the men's public world rests. She is as intelligent as you, perhaps more so, but her path was chosen for her the day she was born a girl. Her knowledge, her world, is entirely domestic. The most unsettling piece of your newfound awareness comes later that evening. Your father's business has grown, and he recently acquired a new, valuable asset, an educated slave. His name is Theron. He was captured during a campaign in Greece a few years ago. He is a quiet man of about 30, with sad, intelligent eyes. By Roman law, he is property. He could be beaten, sold, or killed at your father's whim. His job is to act as your father's scribe and accountant, and to help you with your studies. He comes to your room to review the speech you gave. You hand him the papyrus. He reads it silently, his expression unreadable. "It is very well structured, master," he says, his voice a soft, deferential murmur. "It follows the teachings of the great rhetoricians perfectly." Kata said it was competent, you say, fishing for another compliment. He is wise. It is the very model of a competent Swassoria, Theron says. Then he hesitates for a fraction of a second. "If I may be so bold, master, a small observation." "Go on," you say, intrigued. "Your argument about honor is based on the traditional Roman interpretation of Hannibal's character. But the Greek historian Polybius, who knew the Carthaginian generals, suggests that their concept of honor was tied more to pragmatism and success than to Roman ideas of martial glory. An argument that marching on Rome would be more honorable because it showed ultimate confidence might have been an interesting, if unconventional, path to explore. You stare at him. His insight is brilliant. It's a deeper, more nuanced understanding of the historical context than anything Cotta or his students discussed. It is, frankly, a better idea than anything in your own speech, and this man, this intellectual superior, is your family's property. This is the strange, maddening paradox of Roman society. Knowledge and status are utterly disconnected. Theron is a walking library, a man who has likely read more and understood more than anyone in your elite class. Yet he is a slave. The pedagogy who accompanied your wealthy classmates to Demetrius's school were the same brilliant Greek minds who were little more than high-class babysitters, their intellects shackled to the whims of the children they were tasked to raise. You suddenly see your entire education in a new light. The years of misery, the beatings, the boredom, the humiliation, they were not just a trial, they were an initiation, a long, arduous, and expensive process designed not just to make you literate, but to constantly reinforce your privileged place in the hierarchy. You were beaten by a low-status literator to learn your place. You were humbled by a high-status grammaticus to learn respect for culture. And you were polished by a powerful rhetor to learn the language of command. All of it the pain, the cost. The effort was designed to separate you from the boy hauling pottery, from your intelligent sister in her domestic sphere, and, most starkly, from the brilliant man who stands before you, a slave. Your terrible education was the price of admission to the top of an unjust world. The realization brings no comfort, only a profound and unsettling clarity. You deliver your speech on the imaginary legal case, the controversia, with a chilling perfection. It is a convoluted case involving a Vestal virgin accused of letting the sacred flame go out because she was saving a drowning man. A scenario designed to pit piety against humanitarianism. You argue her defense with flawless structure. You charm the imaginary jury with your exordium. You praise the gods and the value of human life. Your arguments are a textbook application of everything Cotta has taught you. You are no longer just competent. You are a polished weapon of rhetoric when you finish. There is a moment of silence before your classmates. The sons of the most powerful men in Rome break into genuine applause. Lucius Cotta smiles, a broad, proud expression. "Excellent," he says, his voice booming in the garden. "Your education is complete. You are ready for the forum." And just like that, it's over. 17 years of your life, from the pre-dawn walk through the filthy streets to this sun-drenched garden, have culminated in this moment. You have crossed the finish line. There is no grand ceremony, no scroll to hang on the wall of your family's insula. There is only the quiet, heavy understanding that your shaping is finished. You are the final product. The feeling is not one of elation or triumph, but of a strange, hollow emptiness. The race is over. The misery is done. but you sense that the prize is simply a more complex and demanding kind of servitude. A few days later, your new life begins. This final stage of your education is called the tirocinium fori, the apprenticeship of the forum. Your father, his chest puffed with pride, takes you to the heart of the city, to the Roman Forum itself. He introduces you to Gaius Scribonius Curio, a powerful senator and an old family friend, a man renowned for his legal mind and his political influence. From this day forward, you are to be his shadow. Your classroom is now the city itself. You follow Senator Curio everywhere. You stand silently behind him in the echoing halls of the Basilica Julia as he argues a complex inheritance case, your mind automatically breaking down his opponent's speech into its constituent fallacies. You sit in the back rows of the Senate House, a massive, awe-inspiring building of marble and gold, and listen to debates about grain subsidies for Egypt and troop deployments to Gaul. You learn not just the theory of rhetoric, but the messy, practical art of it, the strategic cough, the theatrical sigh, the well-timed appeal to the ancestors, the subtle character assassination disguised as a concerned inquiry. You are becoming the machine. The education has worked with terrifying efficiency. When you see a problem, you no longer see a human dilemma. You see a controversia to be argued. When you hear a policy proposal, you don't first ask if it is good or just. You ask if it is defensible. If you can build a solid case for it using the established formulas, your mind, once a wild field, has been plowed, seeded, and cultivated into a perfectly ordered Roman garden, where every plant has its place and no weeds of genuine originality are allowed to grow. One day, while waiting for the senator, you see a man who looks startlingly like your old teacher, Orbilius. He is stooped, gray, and arguing with a merchant over the price of some withered vegetables. You feel a distant, academic flicker of pity for him, the kind one might feel for a broken tool that was once useful. The terror he inspired is gone, replaced by the calm superiority of someone who has successfully passed through the brutal system that the old man is still trapped in. You think of Demetrius, your Greek grammaticus, and you now appreciate him not as a teacher, but as a master technician. You remember his cold dissection of Virgil, not as an act of intellectual cruelty, but as a necessary lesson in understanding the mechanics of the language you now wield as a weapon. Even your perspective on Theron, your father's brilliant enslaved Greek, begins to shift. The profound sense of injustice you once felt is slowly being eroded by a creeping pragmatism. You still consult him on difficult Greek passages, but you no longer see him as an intellectual peer trapped in an unjust system. Increasingly, you see him as a resource, a private library, a useful tool for sharpening your own arguments. The system is winning. It is sanding down your inconvenient moral edges, shaping you into a smooth, functional, and compliant cog for the great Roman machine. This was the point all along. The entire educational apparatus was designed for this single purpose: to produce men like you, the future lawyers, governors, and commanders who will keep the vast, complex empire running. You are standing now on the steps of the Temple of Saturn, looking out over the Forum. You are a young man on the verge of your own career. You wear a fine toga. Your future is assured. and you have everything a man of your class is supposed to desire. The sun is setting, casting long purple shadows across the heart of the world. You see it all, the grandeur of the marble temples, and the squalor of the beggars near the drains, the purposeful stride of senators and the weary shuffle of laborers heading home, the echoes of your entire journey. You can almost smell the fear and filth from that first morning's walk. You can almost feel the sting of the ferula on your palm, the shame of a forgotten line of poetry, the hollow victory of a well-made speech. You have been made. Rome has forged you in its terrible, efficient fires. And as you stand there, a perfect product of this system, you are the living embodiment of the great unanswered question about Rome itself. It's a debate that future historians and educators will have for centuries. Did this rigorous, brutal, and deeply conformist system of education create the stable, effective, and unified ruling class that held an unparalleled empire together for a millennium? Was its focus on a shared culture and a common set of formulas the very glue of Roman power? Or did its profound lack of emphasis on innovation, its suspicion of originality, and its active discouragement of true critical inquiry lead to a slow, creeping intellectual stagnation that, in the long, long run, would leave the empire unable to adapt, unable to change, and ultimately unable to survive? You don't have the answer. The system has specifically trained you not to ask such large, uncomfortable questions. You are not a philosopher. You are a Roman. You straighten your toga, compose your face into an expression of dignified gravity, and walk down the steps to take your place in the machine. The last light of the sun glints off the golden roof of the Capitol, a final, fiery flash before the dusk. The noise of the Forum begins to soften, the sharp edges of the day's business blurring into a low, evening hum. The great machine of Rome is settling down for the night, its work done, ready to begin anew in the morning. And you can let your own work be done for the night, too. The years of struggle are over. The memory of the cane, the sting of humiliation, the weight of 1,000 memorized lines, you can let it all go now. Let the image of the crowded Forum dissolve, leaving only the deep, quiet color of the evening sky. Allow the voices of your teachers, the grating commands of Orbilius, the cool analysis of Demetrius, the smooth persuasion of Cotta to fade into a soft, indistinct murmur, and then into silence. There are no more lessons to learn tonight, no more speeches to prepare. There is only the gentle, welcome quiet. The day is over. Your education is complete. You have been shaped, and now you can be still. Let the tension ease from your shoulders. Let your mind soften its focus, and let the slow, steady rhythm of your own breathing be the only thing you need to notice as you drift away from the distant, fading memory of Rome and into the soft, quiet darkness of your own well-deserved rest.